Okay, we'll slowly get started. First, a warm welcome to all of you for this Grand Solutions 2025 Phase 2 information webinar for invited applicants. The webinar will be recorded, and please use the Q&A in Teams for questions you may have. We had a lot of good applications this year, a new record, so we're happy about that. And that also means congratulations to all of you who got invited to Phase 2 for already making it this far. We hope you'll find some useful information in this webinar. Otherwise, you can ask questions to us, of course, at the end of the webinar or during this Phase 2 process. With you today are myself, Martin, and my colleague Mila, and we both work on a daily basis with several other colleagues in the Grand Solutions program. The agenda of the webinar is first a very brief summary of the framework of the program, and then a walkthrough that's also a bit more in the detail of the Phase 2 application format, allowed adjustments from Phase 1 to Phase 2, the decision criteria and the assessment process, and some points of attention before there will be plenty of time for questions from you. So briefly about the framework, the Grand Solutions program is for projects that have concrete solutions to societal challenge, have a high risk profile, and create high impact and value for Denmark. And this could lead, for instance, to new knowledge, improved processes, systems, or products. Any partnership with at least one Danish CVR number can apply for the Grand Solutions, and Investment Fund Denmark invests between 5 and 40 million Danish kroner in the projects that can last 1 to 5 years. And there should be value creation for Denmark that can be societal and or financial. The overall timeline for the 2025 process is that the Phase 1 deadline was in the 19th of March. And then we have sent out letters just last week, 27th of May. And then there will be the deadline for these Phase 2 applications on the 19th of August. Leaving a bit extra time for Phase 2 because there's also the summer holiday. And then we aim to send out the decisions for Phase 2 at the end of November. So that gives a total processing time of up to 9 months. So now a walkthrough of the Phase 2 application format. And for those of you familiar with the Grand Solutions program before it became Phase 1 and Phase 2, there's not many changes to this for full application. So first, there are the basics that are several mandatory fields, a lot of them for data collection purposes. And then there are also some appendices, and some of them are optional. For instance, the Appendix A, figures and tables, but it's mandatory to have a budget and so on. So now there are 3 slides about the project description itself, and they relate also to the 3 evaluation criteria. The first slide here is for the idea, and here you need to describe the aim of the project with at least some measurable, quantifiable goals that should be specific and time-bound. Then there's some space to describe the unmet need and state of the art, and how this idea moves beyond state of the art, and what methods are to be used in the project. The next fields are for describing the impact of the value creation. So the societal or economic impact first, and here, please remember to be specific about your project, how that will create value. We see a bit too often some overall descriptions or generic descriptions here of some sector or market and how that is expected to evolve. But please keep in mind to be specific what you estimate will come out of your project. Then there's some space to describe the strategic relevance and the competition space. And about the competition, keep in mind that can also be in a broader sense for completely different ways to try to solve the same problem you may be working on. There's also some space to describe the intellectual property rights and the implementation of the project. Then finally, there's some subsections for describing the project execution. And first is the governance and management. And here, keep in mind that the Innovation Fund Denmark has some overall framework of how the governance should be for a Grand Solutions project, but there's still some room to operate within that. Then there's some space to describe the key persons and the work plan, and up to 10 work packages, and the risk assessment. Some points about what's allowed to adjust from the phase 1 application to the phase 2 application. So there's a lot of text on this slide, and I'll just go through the main points. On the call, there's no shift allowed between calls. You cannot change, for instance, from the green research to the life science research. You have to stay within the same call that you are invited. The title of your project, you can only do minor clarifications, and the acronym should stay the same as in phase 1. The budget, the expected total budget can be increased or decreased by up to 20%. And there'll be an example of this on the next slide. Similarly, the requested IFD investment can be increased or decreased by up to 20%, and the same for the core participants. The budget can be increased or decreased by up to 20%. But the change between the partners can be higher. So that's the total investment. That can be up to 20%. And the investment amount for other participants can be freely adjusted, as long as you stay within the 20% total. Yeah. So the project description, the foundation and concept of the idea must be preserved, with some elaborations allowed, but the core has to be preserved, so to speak. Quantifiable goals can be adjusted, but if you have changes of more than 25% in quantitative goals from the phase 1, and all qualitative goals must be justified. The state of the art and competition must be updated to reflect the current situation, and expected impact can be adjusted, but substantial changes must be justified. Methods can be elaborated, and additional methods can be described. Changes to the methods in the letter of interest must be justified. And about the partnership itself, and this is important, core participants must be preserved. There are no changes allowed there. So we're quite strict on that. But additional participants can be added, but that has to be also justified in the description. Yeah. And key persons must be preserved, but of course there can be some unforeseen changes, and we can allow that. But then the persons leaving the project between phase 1 and 2 must be replaced by other persons with equal competences. And here's then an example of the budget allowed adjustments. So if you have, for instance, and this is just an example, a total project budget of 50 million Danish kroner, then the 20% increase or decrease means that the total project budget can be from 40 to 60 million Danish kroner. And the same goes for the requested IFD investment. In the example, if it's 33 million Danish kroner, then the adjustment range in the phase 2 can be from 26.4 million Danish kroner up to 39.6 million Danish kroner. But it should still stay within the maximum IFD investment rate. So here, if you have 66% IFD investment rate in phase 1, you can still, even if you are allowed in principle to adjust 20%, you can still go to a maximum of 75% as described in the guidelines for most of the calls. Keep in mind here that the quantum technologies and space technology calls allows for a bit higher investment rate. The total budget for all core partners in this example is 29.5 million Danish kroner. And that means that the adjustment range for phase 2 is 23.6 to 35.4 million Danish kroner. But the undistributed funds, if you have used that in phase 1, can be adjusted freely for the additional partners in phase 2. Now there will be some slides about the decision criteria for phase 2. And that's on the 3 overall main criteria, the quality of the idea, the value creation, and the project execution. So first, the quality of idea. There are 4 sub-criteria that the evaluators need to take into account. And that's first that the aim, and then it's the unmet need, and the state of the art, and the methodology. And they look at if the application clearly and successfully address these sub-criteria. Then there's the impact criteria, and here the evaluators look at the societal and economic impact for Denmark that is plausible and substantiated. They also look at the strategic relevance and the competitive landscape, and if obstacles and opportunities in relation to IPR are identified and related to, and that the implementation of results either during or after the project are well described and planned. And finally, the quality of execution criteria. Here the evaluators need to look at if the application clearly describes that the governance and management is suitable, and that the budget is realistic and efficient, and that the right qualifications of the key persons are there, and that there's a good risk analysis and mitigation, and preferably that it's integrated in the plan, and that the work plan and work packages are operational and with clearly defined deliverables and milestones, and some quantifiable decision criteria, for instance, for a stop-go milestone or such, and that it's a good balance between the project participants with the tasks and so on. Yes. So overall, before we go to the assessment process, you can say that the evaluators try to answer these questions. Is this a good idea? Will it create some value, and can it be brought into life? So the assessment process is that after receiving the applications after the deadline, the IFD Secretariat makes an eligibility check. And that's looking for that the text is written in English and all the appendices are there, that's the budget and so on, to make sure that all these things are in place. And then allocation in the committees is taking place together with the committee chairs and vice chairs, and it may also be necessary to include external established researchers if the right competences are not present in the committees. Then of course the eligibility check can lead to administrative rejection, but otherwise the committee will evaluate the application, and they will also have a few designated committee members to gather all the evaluations and possibly the external reviews and consultation of parties if such a response has been submitted. And then the committee make a joint calibration and discussion of all the available material, and that will result in a total ranking list of all the applications. which ultimately leads to a rejection of the application or invitation to investment agreement contracting. Yeah, and so there's some processing time for this. And then about the committees themselves, then they have two types of profiles. First off, I can say there are 5 committees to cover all the calls, and they have between 6 and 18 members in each, and you can see them on our webpage. They cover domains within each team, and there's a diversity in focus so that we get all the perspectives in play. So the two types of the committee members are either established researchers. You can see some points about them to the right. They are at least half the members of a committee and also have the vice chair. And the requirements are that it's well-established researchers that are either at associate professor level or senior researcher level minimum. And they typically come from institutions around Europe. We have a few from outside also. The other type of committee member is impact specialists, and that also have the chair has this type, and up to half of the members of the committee are impact specialists. And what they have in common is to have considerable experience with commercialization and implementation of research results or advanced products, services from the private or public sector in Denmark, and preferably also internationally. So they take a closer look at and make sure that there's value creation for Denmark in the project. Good. So finally, before we get to questions, there's a few points of attention from our side. And the first is that phase 2 is only open by invitation, just to make that clear. And please read the guidelines carefully, and you can contact us if there's something you find a bit unclear. We also encourage you to start in good time. And remember also that before the phase 2 deadline, it is possible to reopen your application in the eGrant system after you have submitted first time, as long as it's before the final deadline. And we will only process the latest version that you submit unless you ask us otherwise. And this is still new for us with the 2 phases, so we very much welcome your feedback. You can get in touch with us through the webpage. And with that, I will finish for the presentation and open the floor to questions. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, and we do have a first question coming in from Marie asking, will all applications go in external review?
No, that's not likely. There are a lot of good competences already in the committees, and they should be able to cover most of the topics. And that's also our experience from phase 1, that actually most of the applications do not need external evaluators, but we can't know for sure how many it will be.
And maybe specifying that external reviewers are people from outside the committee.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question on reviewers, but maybe more goes to the committee members. Will the external reviewers be the same as in phase 1?
No, they could be, but it depends on several things. The external reviewers must be available and have the time and say yes to the task and so on. So it's not necessarily the same. We may have to find someone else, but it could be the same.
Thank you. And another one here going, how much does external review versus committee evaluation weigh? How important is the external evaluation? Is it the same committee from phase 1 to phase 2? That the last part was covered, but
Yes, just to answer that first, it is the same committee in phase 1 and phase 2. And there's no weight as such going into a mathematical calculation. The external evaluation is a supportive evaluation that the committee takes into account, along with the consultation of parties in an overall discussion and ranking jointly. Yeah.
Thank you. And a practical question to eGrant. Søren is asking, is the electronic application form for phase 2 open in the eGrant system now?
Yes, it's open.
So you can get started.
And for now, I don't see any further questions, but feel free to put any questions in the Q&A section.
Yeah, so if I could just elaborate on the application form in eGrant, it will be possible to select the specific application form for the call that you are applying for. So you need to just pick the one that you applied for in phase 1 as well.
I don't see any new questions coming in. Let's just give people another minute to write any questions. And questions can be written in the Q&A section. Yeah, someone's writing here. Justin is asking, what is approximately the success rate between phase 1 and phase 2?
Yes, it's between phase 1 and phase 2. I just have to, because we have several success rates, and what we say in the call text is that the success rate from the phase 2 applications to investment agreement is between 30 and 50%. From phase 1, you could say that it's I think we also have around 30% or 25% for some of the calls. It's a bit uneven. Some of the calls are very popular, you could say, or the budget is a bit more limited. So you could say that out of the total applications on budget, we invite roughly 25% or 30% to phase 2 on average.
Thank you. And Bettina is asking, how many persons in the committee will read the application, and will they read the same application in phase 2?
It's a good question, because it's not exactly the same for all committees, because they have different budget and amount of people. So ideally, all committee members evaluate all applications, but for some of the committees that have a quite high number of applications, they have different roles. So some have a more thorough evaluation, and others just need to read and take part in the discussion for a given application. So there is a bit of difference between the committees, how they handle it there, and there's also different levels, so to speak, on engagement in the evaluation.
But is there a minimum of amount of persons reading an application?
Yes, there should be. I'll see if I can remember from last year, but I think it was 4 or 5.
I think it was,
or 6 even.
6, I think,
Yeah.
last year.
6,
for the same minimum this year. And in regard to whether the same person or evaluators will read the applications that they read in phase 1, we will strive to have some sort of consistency, but of course it depends on the workload for each committee member as well. We will try to distribute it evenly. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question from Karina asking, can you elaborate a little about the required deliverables?
In the project description, I guess, with the required deliverables, I can. So you could say overall that there's several levels of a grand solutions project. And if we start at the very top, very out, it's the vision of the project, and that means what will this project lead to in the future outside of the scope of the project. So it could be in 2030 something that then this solution will be implemented here and there and create this much value, jobs or CO2 reductions or financial value or whatever. And to reach that vision at high level first, then what does the outcome of the project need to be? We sometimes say, what are we standing with in our hands when the project ends? That's the goals of the project. And in order to reach that goal of the project, we come to the third level, and that's the deliverables and milestones that need to then happen during the project lifetime to realize the goals and the overall vision. So that's what you need to put in place, that this looks reasonable and that it fits together with the different partners and what they have to deliver to each other in the project, and to reach the milestones that's set up in order to realize the final goal of the project. And here it's also common to tie some risk analysis to these milestones and deliverables. If there's something that looks very risky, what are the mitigation plans, and also beneficial to maybe include a stop-go decision if there's another route that should be pursued, or if the project will actually terminate if you can't make this deliverable. And I'm speaking here in some general terms because this is quite broad program, as you probably are aware, that it can be many different things, from some equipment to some data to some measurement, many things. I hope that otherwise specify your question, please.
Thank you. And another practical question due to eGrant. How do you find the electronic application form for phase 2 in eGrant?
Yeah, it should be described in your invitation letter, but it should be when you log in to eGrant, it should be under the possible application. I'm not sure how it's called in English actually, but you can see all possible applications in eGrant, and then you just pick the one corresponding to the call you replied for in phase 1. I hope that answers the question.
And here's one from Mats. Is the preliminary outline of application form for phase 2 on your homepage going to be updated?
I guess the preliminary outline was preliminary, and now we have the final outline. But we do have a PDF version of the final form that you can request, or maybe we can send it out to the participants here.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. What are the requirements regarding licensing and ownership of software and other products developed as a result of the funded research? Specifically, are there any obligations for open access or open source licensing, or is it acceptable to use other types of licenses, for instance, proprietary or dual licensing?
Oh, that's a good question. We do have some description of open access in the guidelines that we encourage that applicants comply to, but there could be specific instances where it's beneficial for the project to use something else. I think that can be argued, but otherwise get in contact with us. We still have contact persons on the call text that you can get in contact with if you have some specific, a very specific question for your project. But generally, what's better for the project can be argued. It's not that there are very strict requirements on this, but to be sure, I think it's better to get in touch with us beforehand there could be various ways of creating value in a project, and it can sometimes be through some open access and other types, for other times more for the IPR way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Time is almost up, but let's just take the final questions. Should we use your impact framework? This is a question from Charlotte.
I would say if you can, you're most welcome, but it's not a requirement. I can try to repeat about the impact. It can be specified on many levels, but I think often the tricky part, but also the good part, is to get as concrete as you can, specific in what value this particular project can create. As we too often see either some vague descriptions or a bit on an overall level, and that's also why I said it can be very difficult to estimate this value creation. It is also for us internally in this value creation framework that it's so far in the future sometimes, but the more you can then substantiate that this is the aim and make it plausible and maybe give a range, higher and a lower limit, then I think that's more tangible for the evaluators to look at. Yeah.
Thank you. And there are no further questions in the Q&A section for now. So we can just inform you that the recordings will be available on the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
And feel free to reach out to us. Either we have a general mail address that you saw in your invitation letter, or otherwise contact the specific investment officers in the call texts. And we are happy to answer any questions you should have.
Yes. So thank you again for your applications. We're very happy that to get many good applications, including yours, and to also help you further. And we wish you all good luck with your projects. And have a nice day.